In this video, we're going to be talking about addition and subtraction. First, we're going to be talking about the algorithm, or the process or set of rules we follow to calculate things like addition and subtraction. And once we understand this process of calculating things with addition and subtraction, we're going to talk about different strategies for estimation. That's when we're not actually calculating the exact answer, but we're using strategies to figure out an answer that's going to be close enough. Let's get started. Let's talk about the process for addition. We're going to start with whole numbers. Let's use an example. Let's take 114 plus 321. We want to think of these numbers in order of groups of 10. So in this number, we don't have any decimals here, so we've got our ones, our tens, and our hundreds. And we want to add the numbers in these columns. So first we have 4 plus 1 gives us 5, 1 plus 2 gives us 3, 1 plus 3 gives us 4. So 114 plus 321 equals 435. Now this is almost the same example, but I've added 5, so we should get the answer of 440. We still have our columns, our ones, our tens, and our hundreds, so we're going to add in these columns. But this time, if I do 9 plus 1, I get 10. I can't write a 10 down here. So what I have to do is move this 1 and add it to the column before. So remember, this is our ones column, this is our tens column, and this is our hundreds column. So if this is a 10, it can't stay in this column, it's got to be added up here. So I've carried the 1, and now I have 1 plus 1 plus 2, which gives me 4, and 1 plus 3, which also gives me 4. So like I said, it's 5 more than this. We get to 440. Now let's look at an example where the numbers don't line up perfectly. So they both have ones, they both have tens, only one has hundreds and thousands. When this happens, we want to make sure we're lining up the ones and the tens. If I wrote this number like this, I'll show you, it would end up with a very different answer. Let's go ahead and do it properly. 6 plus 9, that gives me 15, so that's 5 ones and 1 10. And then if we take the 1 10, 7 tens, and 4 tens, that gives me 12. So that gives me 2 and a 1. Because this row is tens, I'm actually adding 10, 70, and 40, which gives me 120. So this 1 is 100, it goes in the hundreds column. This 2 is 2 tens for this 20. I know it's a little bit confusing, it's just really important that you have to keep everything in the column where it belongs. So I'm adding 100 plus 800 gives me 900. Because there's nothing here, it's like there's a 0. And didn't have to put anything in the thousands column. So we have 1000 plus 0 gives me 1925. And now if I were to do it this way, and I didn't line up the numbers properly, I would do 6 plus 0 is 6, 7 plus 0 is 7, 8 plus 9 gives me 17, that gives me 6, which is not equal to the actual number. So it's really, really important that you line up your numbers in the right columns, the ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. So before we move on to decimals, let's try a couple practice questions. I'll put the question on the screen here. You're going to try to do it on your own on a piece of paper. Video will pause and multiple choice answers will come up. You'll select the answer you get and you'll be able to see if you were right. So for your first one, I've given you 341 plus 9,872. And I haven't put it in this stacked format on purpose, so make sure when you're doing it on paper, you stack the numbers and line them up properly. Okay, now I've stacked my numbers properly. I put the larger number on top. That's just what I'd like to do. Because we're adding, it doesn't matter the order of these two numbers. So I'll just put the larger one up there. Now I'm going to add each column. 2 plus 1, those are ones. 3 of them. 7 plus 4 is actually 70 plus 40 gives me 110. 7 plus 4 is 11. And then 1, 8, and 3 are going to give me hundreds, which would be 12 hundreds, which would then give me 10 thousands. So 10,213 is your answer. Let's try one more. Let's try 17,549 plus 97. So 9 plus 7, 16. 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 4 is 14. Give me 6, 7, 1. The answer is 17,646. Now let's talk decimals. So for example, let's say we have these two numbers and we want to add them together. This exact same algorithm or process applies. You're going to be stacking your numbers and lining them up. This time you're paying really special attention not to the end number, but to the decimal point. You want to make sure you've lined up the decimal point. If you've done that, then you'll have lined up numbers that are in the same column. So we still have our ones, and our tens, and our hundreds, thousands, etc. But now we also have our tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. It's the exact same number as on the other side of the decimal place, just with a TH in it. And then once we've done that, any number that doesn't have a match, just like before, we can picture a 0 there. And now we're ready to solve using our process or algorithm. So for thousandths, I've got 0 plus 2, 2 thousandths. Hundredths, I've got 8. Tenths, I've got 9 and 4, which is going to give me 13 tenths, which means that has a 1 in the ones column, because 13 tenths is the same as 1 or 1 whole and 3 tenths. So the 1 goes in the ones column and the 0.3 stays in the tenths column. So just like before with the other questions without the decimal place, we are carrying our number up to the next column. So now I have 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 6 gives me 9. This is when having good mental math comes in handy. You don't have to count on your fingers or anything. You can do it in your head. This takes practice though. For tens, we've got 2. And hundreds, we've got 5 and 0. So 529, and our decimal gets lined up here. 3 tenths, 8 hundredths, and 2 thousandths. There is our answer. We line up our decimal and we continue all the way down to our response. And then you're following the same pattern of adding each column and carrying over the number if you need to. So let's do another practice problem. See if you can figure out what these two numbers added together equals. Okay, let's stack our numbers and try it out. So I've written my first number, I'm going to carry the decimal place down, and then I'm going to start to line up these numbers. Anywhere I don't have a match, I'll put a 0. Okay, so now I have 2, 17, there. Let's move on to subtraction. Let's talk subtraction with whole numbers. We're going to follow the exact same process or algorithm as with addition with a slight difference, but we're going to subtract. So we're going to go down the column, we're going to do 6, subtract 4, that's going to give us 2, and 40, subtract 30, gives us our 10. The answer would be 12. But let's look at this example. Let's take away 38 instead of 34, so the answer should be 4 less than 12. If we try to follow the same method, we realize we can't, because we can't take 8 away from 6 without ending up with a negative number, and that's not what our answer is going to be. So in this case, because we can't take 8 away from 6, we actually take 8 away from 16, and we borrow from our tens column here. And instead of 40, this is now 30, and this is 16. Because 30 and 16 is the same as 40 and 6. We just moved a 10 over a little bit. So now we can do 16 minus 8, which gives us 8, and 3 minus 3, which gives us 0. So when the number on top is smaller, you need to borrow from the next column. Try this example. Try 416 minus 97, and check your answer. So in this example, I'm subtracting 7 from 6, which I can't do, so let's go ahead and borrow this 10 and make it 16. That gives me 9. But now I'm doing 0, subtract 9, which I can't do. So I'm going to go ahead and borrow again, make this 10. 10 subtract 9 gives me 1. 3 subtract our 0 is 3. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like with decimals. So for these numbers, the first thing I'm going to do is write my top number, my bigger number. And then I'm going to write the decimal right below it. And we'll fill in this number around the decimal. Now, anywhere I see a blank spot, no match, I'm going to assume that there's a 0 there. And this is subtraction. Good. Now, I can't take 2 away from 0, so now I've got to borrow from the 7. Now I can do that. 10 subtract 2 is 8. I can't take 8 away from 6, so I can't do that. I also can't borrow from this 0, so I need to go over again and make this 5, which would make this 10. So let's borrow it, make it 9, and make this 16. It's a little bit of a process, but you just go until you find something you can borrow from. 16 minus 8 is 8, 9 minus 9 is 0, 5 minus 4 is 1, 3 minus 0 is 3. And there we go. Now you try one. Try 31.91, subtract 14.976, and then check your answer. So this one involves quite a bit of borrowing. We can't subtract 6 from 0, so I'm going to make this a 10. And this again is 0, so I need to make that an 8. And again, this 0 becomes a 10. But again, I can't borrow from this, so I've got to go over again. 18 subtract 9 is 9. I can't subtract here, so again, I'm borrowing all the way across to get my answer. If you're having trouble getting the same answer as I'm getting, we are going to do a little bit more practice with this, but the next concept we need to talk about first is estimation. Now, an estimation is a rough judgment of the number. It's not exact, and there's no exact process for this. This is something that you come up with different strategies for over time. The more you work with numbers, the more helpful your strategies will be, and the more easily you'll have access to them. So I'm going to show you an example of how I might estimate a number, but then you're going to go into some practice playing a game live, not in a video, so you'll be able to kind of learn what your own estimation strategies are and talk about them with each other. In this example, I have the number 47.9 subtract 25.62. So I'm going to roughly estimate what that answer is going to be. Looking at the number 47.9, to me that's close to 50. So in my mind, I'm going to hold that as 50. That's an easier number for my brain to work with. And I know that 25 is about the same as half of 50. So I'm going to say that this answer is approximately 25. And if I go ahead and calculate it, it's actually 22.28, which I probably could have guessed it was going to be less than 25 because this is less than 50, but it's close enough. So in this example, I've got 141 and 78. So I want to group these into groups of 100. So 141, I know I'm going to have one group of 100, and then a group of 40, and 78, it's close to 80, but this is more than 100, so I need to make this 60, which gives me 20 left over. So I like to work in groups of 10. This gives me about 220, and when I calculate it, it's actually 219, so I was really close. So your next step is to go play this game with other students. So you're going to find me, I'll give you this game, and you can get going.